continue with my series on happiness, on attitudes that promote happiness. And I want to start with a little different lead than you would think. The last 2 months have been the unhappiest of my life. What a bummer lead on a message on happiness. I say that to say this: I don't believe that we all can be happy all the time. I'm not trying to set up some kind of false requirement, or that we should be. The Bible talks about weeping with those who weep, because it knows that there's times when you weep, and we're not supposed to go who have just suffered grief and say, "Oh, cheer up, it'll be all right." No, we're supposed to weep with those who weep. And I want to say you guys have done a good job with that. You have been there for me. And I appreciate so much the comfort and the friendship that you have given. We don't have to always be happy, but I do believe this, that with God we can have mainly a lot of happiness, a happy life. I do believe that. And that's what I want us to talk about. Continuing that attitude. What is an attitude? Attitude is like our mental outlook, our framework, our beliefs, and what we think about life. Somebody said, this happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Now that's not always true, but there's a lot of truth in that. How you deal with whatever comes to you in life, how you think about it. Let's look at these verses in Ephesians chapter 4. Paul says here, since you have heard about Jesus and have learned the truth that comes from him. Now let me stop right there. He's talking to Christian people who are followers of Jesus. If you read that whole passage in Ephesians 4, he's talking about how we're different now. We're followers of Christ. So since you've learned Jesus and you're following him, throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life. He's saying to us who are Christians, we're still going to have trouble with the old person. It's still there, and you got to throw them off. And why? Because it's corrupted by lust and deception. What two things? Lust and deception. We are still dealing with our own inward wants that want us to go the wrong way sometimes. We're still dealing with that. It's corrupted. This nature is still that. And you've got it right within you a desire to have the wrong attitude about things. And also deception. We hear more lies every day than we even realize. Every day we're being lied to. It's like it's in the atmosphere. Lies. More lies than ever in history you could get out. Are hitting us all the time. And that's why we got to watch out for deception. It is corrupting us if we're not careful. So instead, let the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, renew your thoughts and your attitudes. Instead of just accepting everything that you hear from your friends or pop culture or the news or whatever that comes along, let the Holy Spirit of God renew your thoughts and your attitudes. So, I'm going to talk about 6 attitudes that we can have that are going to help us promote happiness. I'm going to go ahead and get the one that's most controversial out of the way first. I may have to lower my expectations to be happy. Whenever I say that, people say, "What? No, wait a minute. Lower my, I thought I was supposed to lift up. I mean, God can do anything. Faith in God. He is a great God. Nothing is impossible with God." And I say this, Sandy and I say this in marriage seminars. Sometimes the way to a happy marriage is to lower your expectations. And you should see the pushback we get from that. No, wait a minute. No. I'm expecting more out of that guy. All right, and I'm not saying that there's not areas to be worked on. We do have to all work on things in our marriage and on us. I'm not saying that. But a lot of times we aim for perfection in our marriage, in our Christian life, in this world, and you know what? You're never going to get it. And so you're never happy if you're aiming and expecting perfection. So here again, let's look at Paul said. He said, I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. Whoa! To be content with whatever I have? I know how to live on almost nothing, or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's on a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. He's saying, I can be happy when I got everything. I can be happy when I don't have much. I've learned in all these situations to be content, to have more peace. He has chosen an attitude that says sometimes I have to lower my expectations in life. Now here's a picture of a Whataburger. Now most of you know we've got a Whataburger here in Hermitage. I don't know how long they've been here, a year? I don't know, months. And when it came in, the lines were always the lines of cars everywhere. I'm not going to wait in line. I'm not going to wait there. So finally 2 weeks ago, a group of us old guys went to Whataburger. Now, here's what I was expecting. All these people waiting in line, it must be the king of burgers. I can't wait to eat a Whataburger. And I had a Whataburger and I was, all right. Now, if I would have went to the expectation was a burger place, I said, well, it's a pretty good burger. But I was expecting woohoo! And it wasn't woohoo. Now, some of you may be woohoo and not Whataburger. I know we have different opinions on things. But the point is, when your expectations are up here and it's down here, it's like you didn't have a good experience. And that's the way I think a lot of people are with life. Somehow we've got that in because we're Christians, there's no hardships, no problems. Everybody's going to be on my side. Everybody's going to just cheer my stand. And once they hear me tell about what I believe, they're going to say, well, you know, when you explained it that way so wonderfully, it just something, I agree with you. And it doesn't happen. I know that God is a big God. That's, understatement. And he can do anything. But he never promised any of those things. No hardship, no trouble, no sickness, no death, no people opposing you. Never promised any of those. But we expect it. And then when it doesn't come in, we're not happy. What are you doing? God, we're disappointed. And I understand that. I think we've come to a time, I'm a baby boomer, which means I was born after World War II, and from World War II on, we have come to the most prosperous, healthy time in the history of the world. And so we expect this. The doctor to always fix us. We're going to always have what we want. Not realizing that for most of the history of the world, we didn't have that. They did not expect it. People didn't name their babies for 6 months of it because infant death was so high. I'm not saying I like that. I'm saying they learned that you had trouble. We sometimes don't expect any trouble, and that's what throws us for a loop. I told you recently about the study at Harvard where generations they followed, and the guy wrote a book, and what did he say happiness was? Anybody see if you was ever listening to what happiness he said is what? Well, I'm glad you were listening so well 2 weeks ago. This is why you don't worry about preaching rerun preachers. They don't remember what you said. Don't worry about that. I should have preached that same one again this week. He said happiness is love. And he just full stop. Happiness, he said, and that's when I talk about who instead of what. Relationship. Well, somebody else did a study, and they came up with a happiness equation. Happiness is greater than or equal to your perception of the events of your life minus your expectations of how life should behave. In other words, you can have pretty good events, but if you expected more, subtract that off the happiness. He's saying that what? Expectations can ruin our happiness. If the events and expectations are the same, if the expectations were a lot higher. Now, I'm not telling you to expect less of God, okay? But I am telling you to expect that in this life we will have trouble. Jesus said we would. I don't like it. I'm not in favor of it. But good things are coming. We remember that as Christians. I'm not saying circumstances don't matter. Of course they matter. But I think that we can be happy. And I want to show you a short video from a guy named Nick, who was born in Australia without arms and without legs. It is about 4 minutes, but it's a good video. So let's watch this.
I wasn't ready. I have no arms and no legs, but I'm very thankful that I have my little chicken drumstick here. People freak out when they see me for the first time. It's so cool. I was at a water slide all by myself. Everyone obviously at the bottom of the slide is giving up and waiting for other people to come down. Here I come, they're freaking out. They're like, you know, like this. And I was so tempted to look at myself and go, what happened? You know? There were times where I sort of looked at my life and thinking, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. And you keep on concentrating on the things that you wish you had or the things that you wish you didn't have. And you sort of forget what you do have. And there's no point, I believe, in my life where I wish I had arms, legs, I wish I had arms, legs, I wish I had arms, legs. Help. But what I've seen in life are just a couple of key principles. And the first thing that I've seen is to be thankful. It's hard to be thankful, man. I tell you, when I was 8 years old, I sort of summed up my life and thought, I'm never going to get married. I'm not going to have a job. I'm not going to have a life of purpose. What kind of a husband am I going to be if I can't even hold my wife's hand? It's a lie to think that you're not good enough. It's a lie to think that you're not worth anything. It's freezing, I can't feel my hands. I love life. You know, so many people come and say, how come you smile so much? And I'm like, well, it's a long story. But it's very simple at the same time. You see, it's very hard to smile sometimes in life. There are things that happen that you don't know and you don't understand, and you don't know if you're going to get through it. You know, you go through your storms in life and you don't know how long the storm's going to be. And today I want to share with you some principles that I've learned in my life that you can use in yours. Being patient is beautiful. I tell you, it's the hardest thing. But I realize I may not have hands to hold my wife's hand, but when the time comes, I'll be able to hold her heart. I don't need hands to hold her heart. You know, it is scary to know how many girls have eating disorders. It is scary to know how many people are just angry at life because of their situation at home and angry at others. It's scary to know how many people actually feel like they're worth nothing. Every single girl right here, right now, I want you to know that you are beautiful. You are gorgeous just the way you are. And you boys, you're the man. On this DVD, I share my experiences in life of how I've overcome challenges and seen a new, fresh perspective in life. To be thankful, to dream big, and to never give up. I speak to children, youth, and adults about key issues and principles that I've applied in my life that has given me the strength to conquer all that comes before me.
All right, Nick is a Christian evangelist. It doesn't really mention this little promo video. It was done about 12 years ago. Since then, he has got married. He has 4 children. And he travels all over the world and speaks to groups you and I can never get into. So here is one quote of his. I'm going to have several quotes of him. He said, often people ask how I managed to be happy despite having no arms and no legs. The quick answer is that I have a choice. I can be angry about not having limbs, or I can be thankful that I have a purpose. I chose gratitude. So we can be happy even with lower expectations. Number 2, attitude I want to have. It's all right to be puzzled, but not to despair. Again, in the New Testament, we are perplexed, or we are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not driven to despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Perplexed, that means puzzled. You ever scratch your head and say, God, what are you doing? I don't understand that. As a pastor, sometimes we'd lose somebody in a church, and one of our best people say, God, can I pick next time? I mean, really, because you're puzzled about who dies and who lives and why. We don't understand what God is doing, and that's the human nature, because we don't. But not driven to despair. Even though it's hard to figure out God, well, it's impossible to figure out God. Doesn't mean that we go to despair. That's what the devil wants. He wants us to quit. What's the use? I'm just not going to do it anymore. I'm going to quit my marriage. I'm going to quit my ministry. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to quit church. I just quit. And that is not what we need to be driven to. It is human to be puzzled, but do not give in and say, I may be puzzled. I don't understand God, but I am not quitting. I am not in despair. I haven't lost my faith. There's still hope. Let's look at another quote from Nick. Adjustments are necessary along the way because life isn't always rosy, but it is always worth living. And it's never time for ourselves to quit life on our own. All right, number 3, personal comfort and pleasure. Now, I put those two together, and that's why I've got is instead of are for you teachers here and grammar specialists. Personal comfort and pleasure, that is not my main goal in life. Now, we all like personal, and I'm not against personal comfort or pleasure, but the happiness is different in that. In Psalms, make me walk along the path of your commands. That is where happiness is found. When I do God's will, not when I just seek to get more pleasure on my own personal comfort, and everybody leave me alone, and I don't want to do anything except have what I want, and aim for. And some people it's the booze or drugs, or some people just sex anytime, or some people just sitting at home in front of the TV, taking it easy. Those are not good goals for life. What kind of goals are those for this precious little bit of time we've given on this earth? Just personal comfort. And we need to say as an attitude, that is not enough for me. That is not my main goal in life. I want to do what God wants me to do. And again, Nick says, if you put your happiness in temporary things, your happiness will be temporary. And I do believe that. So let's not just give in to that attitude of just, I'm going to just relax and take it easy and serving God. I'm going to still do what God wants. So that is not a main goal in life, and that's not our attitude. J.I. Packer, I don't believe I put this up there, he said, the way to be truly happy is to be truly human. And the way to be truly human is to be truly godly. Because God made us, and when we walk in the plan He has for us, that's the way we're going to be happy. All right. Number 4, I can look out for myself and help others. It's not one or the other. It's not me or them. It's both. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Jesus Christ had. The point, idea that He had that attitude. So it's all right for you to look out for yourself. I'm not going to come brush your teeth. You do it yourself. But also you help take care of others. Well, not brush their teeth, but you help take care of others. Have an attitude of, I am not just worried about me, I'm concerned about them. And that you must have, and also it says in Luke, give and you will receive. The amount you give will determine the amount you get back. Isn't that interesting? Now, I don't think it's just talking about money. Love, presence, help, encouragement, mercy, the amount you give, you want those things in your life, give them out. Give them and you'll get back in your life. Think about young parents and a baby crying at night. Now he's got two choices. You can go, they're crying and they're in another room, you go close the door, turn the fan on louder, and let them cry because the pillow's over your head and you go back to sleep. Or you can go see what's wrong with the child. We got to go and do some things to be concerned about other people. So here's another Nick quote. There's one thing better than going to heaven, and that's to encourage at least one other person to go with me. And I hope that that's your goal in life, that you want to be there, take a stand, pray, and even speak to people, that we can take some others to go with us to heaven. You know, what's selfish? We can be our own selfish pig. You know, go home, sit in the living room, home, got the TV on, Netflix, plenty to eat. But are we concerned about anybody else? Are we concerned about whether they're going to heaven or not? Do they know Jesus? That's still a thing, you know, that Jesus wants us to be interested in. Are we helping anybody else to go to heaven? And I'm telling you that when we are, you are going to be happier just even trying to help other people go to heaven. That's a way to happiness. So when you help others, there's a positive connection with humans. And that equals happiness. When you have a positive connection with other human beings, it's better than sitting in front of the TV watching Netflix, even if you're eating good potato chips. It is better. Confidence in your abilities equals happiness. When you can do something and you see that it helps somebody else, you feel like, I can do something. I can do something, which is why we need to get young people and children involved in helping other people. And another result is life is meaningful. And that equals happiness. Your life is worth, it means something. I didn't just live my whole life for me and at the end of my life say, what did I accomplish? I knew who won all the Super Bowls. So what? Is that really all you wanted to end your life? You know all the sports facts, all the entertainers' lives? Or did we do something to help somebody else, to help them come to life in Jesus? I'm telling you, Sandy died too early for Wall in my thinking, but she didn't just spend her life for herself. She did her whole life seeing how she could help somebody else and how she could help them know about Jesus. That was her life.
Amen.
And that's where her life was meaningful. It meant something. We remember it. And we, God, help us to have that attitude. I don't want to just look for my own self, but for others. That's a way to happiness, that attitude. Number 5, I will not live by fear. Which is so easy for us to do, be afraid. The Lord is for me, so I will have no fear. What can mere people do to me? I love that. What can mere people do to me? Well, they can kill you. But that's, we go to heaven. It's terrible for us to live in fear. We can live in fear of failing, so we don't try. We can live in fear of others not liking us, their disapproval. They may not like it if I say something about Jesus, so I will just be quiet. They may not like it when they ask me a question about, what is your belief about this moral stand? Well, I don't want to upset anybody, so I will just be quiet. I'm not saying go stir up stuff on trouble. We don't need, on purpose, we don't need that. But we do need the courage to stand for what's right and not live by fear, not worried all the time about the future. Nick says another one. He says, fear is the biggest disability of all and will paralyze you more than being in a wheelchair. You just sit there with your whole life, won't do anything, won't say anything because you don't know what might happen if you do. We're going to have to step out on faith and do some things. So that's the way to happiness, to have an attitude. And some of these things we need to say to ourselves this week. I'm not going to live in fear. I'm not going to just serve for my own life, but also I'm going to help others. And say some of these things as our attitude and as our declaration of what we're going to do in our lives, the attitude we have. Pleasure is not my main goal. I want to serve God and do His will. All right, number 6, I will trust God and His goodness. Sometimes that's easy. Everything's going all right? Yeah, God is good. Then trouble comes. God, what happened? You used to be good. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His faithful love endures forever. It's going to be hard to be happy if you don't believe God is good. We have to trust that even when we are puzzled, even when we don't understand, that God knows everything and is all wise and is love. And if we believe that, then we believe He is good and does things good that we don't understand. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. One, this is an old story about a witch that lived in the forest, and she had an inn. Now, she loved to get statues of humans, so she would get them to stay at her inn, and if they slept all the way until the sun came up, they would turn to stone. Well, she got a local girl to be her servant girl and forced her to work for her, and so the poor servant girl didn't long to see this happen. She hated to see these people being turned to stone. But then one day a young man came in. He was so polite, smiled at her, was so nice. She said, I do not want to see him turned to stone. So she said, let me get your room ready. She went in, she got a bunch of sticks and stone and put them under his mattress to make it very uncomfortable so he could not sleep. He tossed and turned till in the middle of the night he got up and said, I can't even sleep here. I can't believe you would treat a traveler like this. I'm leaving this crummy place. And he walked out. And this is what the girl said. Ah, the misery you know now is nothing like the infinitely greater misery a comfortable sleep would have brought upon you. Those were sticks and stones of love. Now, I'm not saying God causes every bad thing in our life, but I do know He loves us and He is good. And we have to trust that. And that's an attitude to have to be happy. I watched another video just yesterday, I think, on Nick preaching to a group of prisoners in it must have been hundreds of prisoners in this prison he was speaking to. And they just listened to every word he had to say. And he told about preaching in Mumbai, India, to a group of sex slave girls who were either kidnapped, but most of them were sold by their parents in India for $700 at the age of 10 or 11 to be prostitutes, to be sex slaves in India. And by the way, there are people who do sex tourism, who go from country to country to have sex with young girls. How evil is that? What kind of perverted, evil people go around from country to country to rape 10-year-old girls? There is still evil in this world. And isn't it funny how Epstein and his wife both go to jail, but we ain't found a single person that went to their island that has been prosecuted because they have money and they've got power. And that stinks to high heaven. That was not supposed to be in the sermon. So he says, all right, what am I going to say to 650 girls? This woman had found this 10-acre complex in Mumbai, India, of prostitution. He said, what am I going to say to these 650 teenage and younger girls? He said, I can't just go have a positive attitude. I mean, I believe in being optimistic, but you can't just go tell people, just go have a positive attitude. So he said, I told them about Jesus. I told them that they were important to Jesus, that He saw what they were going through, and that they could have a change and they could have a purpose in their life. And he said that as he finished speaking, there was a couple of women, one of the women ran this place, said, well, if Jesus is real and God's real, what are you going to do about my sister? She has not walked for years. I'll start believing in Jesus if she can walk. He said, all right, well, I'll pray for her. Now, I know God doesn't heal every time, but he prayed for this older woman to get up and walk. And she got up and walked. She hadn't walked in years, and she got up and walked, and she became a Christian. And then he found out who she was. She was the woman who started this place, who started this with young girls and bought them and kidnapped them And she now turned her life around and closed down that prostitution place there at Compound. Because if you are a follower of Jesus, your life is going to be changed. And then he said, as I was speaking in another place, this has been several years ago, at the end of it, a family lifted up their little 2-year-old, and he had no arms and no legs. And afterwards, the parents brought it, and my parents were there, and they all hugged each other, and that began a friendship with little Daniel. And Daniel grew up. As he grew up, Nick got to talk to him, and he became a Christian and a follower of Jesus. And he said this. He said, and I can see why I do this is someday I'm going to see Daniel run to me with his own legs in heaven. And with his own arms, he's going to hug me with my own arms. And that is the happiness through Jesus. What we can live for, to help other people, and what we have for our future. And let's never forget that.